Hey everyone. We finished Proverbs 28 last time, so we're going to start Proverbs Chapter 29. It says, "He that being often reproved hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy." Like, that's often been one of the scariest verses in the scriptures for me to think about, because it's the the stubbornness and persistence of sin. Sometimes we have these um, habitual sins that we can't seem to rid ourselves of, and they have a hold of us, and we struggle and struggle and struggle against it. And this verse says that you know, oft given reproof or correction. If you continue to harden your neck, you continue to be stubborn, even after correction after correction after correction, it says sudden destruction comes, and without remedy. So there comes a point where the grace and the mercy of the Lord ceases, where God is not mocked. We reap what we sow. And so continual sin, like in Ecclesiastes, I think it says that men persistently do their sins because judgment doesn't come right away. So they convince themselves that they're getting away with it, or it's not really a big deal because they didn't drop dead, lightning didn't strike them when they were doing it. So they persistently do it. But when there comes a point where the mercy ends, and you're going to reap what you sow. There is no mocking God. Justice is due, and so sin must be dealt with. And when that comes, when that calamity comes, it's sudden and without remedy. There's no there's verses that talk about like at the time of this is a terrible loose paraphrase, but at the time of judgment, there's no repentance then. Or like there's Psalms that talk about, complete destruction coming, a swift and sudden destruction, like this one is saying here. So like you do a sin and you're reproved for it, and then you do it again and you're reproved, and you do it again and you're reproved, and you do it again. It's like a parent who's you draw that you bring them to the end of their rope. There's no more patience. It's done. Now comes the severe punishment. Now there is grace for the born again. But the scriptures say we're scarcely saved. We can't think that we're just going to get away with things. There is a punishment for sin, and so if you're persistently doing a sin, there's coming a day where there's going to be quick and sudden destruction. So that ought to give the fear of the Lord. That verse ought to fill us with the fear of the Lord. It says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn." That's a similar theme. I think we read a similar verse in 28. 28:12. But to have wicked authority is a tragic thing. To have unjust, evil people in power, it's very grievous and vexing. Like, for me, like when I watch the media and I see the way our politicians act, or the way our celebrities act, people with some semblance of power, the media personalities, and just the continual lying and deception and greed and bloodthirst, like just uncaring about regular people, just using people and benefiting off of people, and just taking advantage of people. It's such a wicked thing. It's very vexing. So for me, when I look at that stuff, it's so grievous. It causes this anger in me to want to see justice, to want to see vengeance. So when wicked are in power, it says the people mourn. There's such a sadness, there's such a tragedy in that, to see the unjust prospering. But when the righteous are in authority, it says people rejoice. I don't think I've experienced that in my lifetime. I don't recall ever, in America at least, having any righteous authority leaders. But there are people, I think of like Senator Ron Paul, when I would see him speak truths, like as a statesman, not a politician, he would speak out against corrupt institutions like the Federal Reserve. It's so refreshing to hear those truths. It's such a great thing. Those people immediately become like personal heroes of mine. Like that's true patriotism, real people standing up for truth. It is a rejoicing thing. It's a glorious thing. Verse 3, whoso loveth wisdom rejoiceth his father, but he that keepeth company with harlots spendeth his substance. So as a parent, to see your children act in wisdom is a great thing. It's rejoicing. Like, to see a child making wise decisions, wholesome, righteous decisions, that's a good thing. But to see them keeping company with harlots, it says you're spending his substance. And I don't know if it's saying he's spending his father's substance or spending his own substance. But in either way, it's a grievous thing to see children going down the wrong path. The king by judgment establisheth the land, but he that receiveth gifts overthroweth it. So again, that's righteous rulers versus unrighteous rulers. A righteous ruler judges by judgment. It's saying that's equity, justice, doing what's right, judging fairly, considering all the facts and doing what is right. But then it says, he that receiveth gifts, that's bribery. And again, it makes you think of our political system in America with the lobbyists and big businesses able to line the pockets of the politicians to get laws passed in their favor. It's such a grievous thing. Like we don't have a fair, just system. And we never have in my lifetime because of things like that. When you have the politicians that are CEOs on major boards, and the media companies are owned by huge, large corporations, a lot of times like military industrial corporations, like GE owns NBC and stuff like that, and GE is a weapons manufacturer. So you're not going to get fair information. You're not going to get fair rulership because they're acting in favor of the people that are paying them. They're acting their bias towards the people that line their pockets, and that's a very grievous thing. Verse 5, a man that flattereth his neighbor spreadeth a net for his feet. So flattery is just deceptive in general, but in this case, spreading the net for his feet, flattery kind of blinds you. Like if you're doing something wrong, but people are patting you on the back saying it's like, it makes me think of the gay pride stuff. Like the pop culture celebrates this wickedness and thereby helps blind the people that are in this sin. If you don't think there's anything wrong, if you don't think what you're doing is wrong, there's no chance of repentance. You're not going to turn from it. You're going to continue down that path. So to pat somebody on the back and to say, hey, everything's going to be okay, and to comfort them in their sin, that's such a wickedness. It's a flattery, like, oh, you're not doing anything wrong. Everything's great. You're just helping to blind their eyes on this march towards death. So again, it's just another wickedness. But that was verse 5. We'll stop there. Lord willing, we'll pick up in verse 6 next time. I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey, everyone. We're continuing on in Proverbs Chapter 29. We read through verse 5, so we're going to pick up here in verse 6. It says, in the transgression of an evil man there is a snare, but the righteous doth sing and rejoice. So wickedness or evil or sin is often referred to as a trap in the Bible, a snare. And it makes sense because it's sin looks appealing. It's a lure. It's a trap. An animal goes into a trap because there's food in there. There's something that's appealing to it. It doesn't recognize the danger. And so it is with sinful man. We go into sin because there's some sort of pleasure there. There's something good is promised. Some sort of sensation to the flesh that's going to feel good is there, but it's a trap. In the sin itself is the snare. It's inbuilt into the sin. So it's an impossibility to sin without the trap, because the sin is the trap. it's the make and the model. It's not just the food. It's built into the trap is built into it. So in the transgression, in the very act of an evil man, there's a trap. He's misguided. His flesh is directing his thoughts. He has a desire to fulfill some itch, some craving, whether that's visually, audibly, through touch, whatever it is, through some sort of thrill of the ego or the pride. Well, scriptures say pride of life, lust of the eyes, or lust of the flesh. So it's one of the three. There's something in that sin that is appealing, that man thinks he's going to get some thrill out of, and he does. But in the transgression, there is a trap. There's a snare, and a lot of times, because it doesn't spring right away, men think they're getting away with things. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those huge pig traps where they used to catch feral pigs. It's like this big metal spring-loaded drop. Like it has food on the ground, so a pig will come in and start eating, but the trap doesn't trigger right away. It stays until there's multiple pigs in there. So the first pig in thinks he's getting away with things, but the Bible talks about how destruction comes suddenly. There's a swift, like most people don't expect to die. Like, their death is unexpected. Nobody wakes up thinking today's the day, I'm going to die today, or in their last moment, before the heart attack or before the car crash. Nobody's thinking, this is my last moment. Everybody's thinking they have more time. It's insane if you watch like elderly people with diseases or something. They even presume they have more time. Like, even an 80-year-old man with cancer doesn't really expect to die. He's thinking there's going to be more time. And that's that trap. So he remains in his sin, and that trap is going to spring at your last breath. And the Bible talks about sudden destruction coming without remedy. You take your last breath, it's over. You're going to the judgment seat. The trap has been sprung, and you're inside of it, and you're done. But then it says the righteous does sing and rejoice. So there's happiness in righteousness. There's real pleasure. There's knowing I'm outside the trap. I'm not in danger. That produces. Think about the rejoicing that produces. We're all going to die, but I'm not going to die in the trap. I've been freed from the trap because Jesus Christ took my punishment. I'm free from that. So that causes a joy. It's like, yes, I'm not under condemnation. I'm not under judgment. So the righteous sings. Verse 7, the righteous considereth the cause of the poor, but the wicked regardeth not to know it. So that's just a person with Christ in their heart is going to have Christ-like compassion and pity. You're going to see people in need and consider it. You're going to desire to help, to remedy the situation. Lost people do that too, and that's why it comes down to, because there's a lot of philanthropy and there's a lot of benevolent acts, even like cults, like the Shriners, who are Luciferians. They have a hospital that helps children. So wicked people do good acts, and that's why every person has to test themselves and find out, what is the reason I'm doing this? If there's a selfish reason, a lot of times it's to feel gratified, or it's to boost your ego, to make you think you're a good person, or to show off in the eyes of others so that other people view you as good, or it's philanthropy can become like an addiction where you get a thrill out of it. You feel good. It's not done for righteousness' sake. Like, real righteousness, Christ wrought righteousness in a person is done for the glory of God. It's done because of righteousness. It's not done for selfish means. It's not done to make yourself feel good or to get a pat on the back or to be done in the eyes of others. In fact, the scriptures tell us to do our good deeds in secret. So it becomes you have to test your heart to find out, is this act really righteous? Because even in the good acts that lost men do, there's sin in it, and that ruins it. From a worldly standpoint, from a horizontal perspective, it's good, and people benefit from it. But from a vertical perspective, it's not a righteous act. It's tainted by some sort of selfish motive. Scornful men, verse 8 here, scornful men bring a city into a snare, but wise men turn away wrath. Just makes you think about society nowadays. There's a lot of scornful men. Wise men turn away wrath. Okay. Verse 9, if a wise man contendeth with a foolish man, whether he rage or laugh, there is no rest. Man, is that true? If like, to contend, it's to fight. So if a wise man fights or argues with somebody who's foolish, regardless of the reaction you get from the fool, you're just wearing yourself out. Like prior to wisdom coming, a lot of times we think we can win an argument. We think we can persuade. We think we can convince. But you can't do that. Knowledge is a gift from God. Understanding is a gift from God. If a person shows foolishness, there's nothing in them that wants correction or reproof. They're just looking to prove their own point. So to argue and to debate and to contend with that person, you're just going to exhaust yourself. There's no rest. You become emotionally drained. You become intellectually drained. Like, for instance, let's say you're doing evangelism and an atheist is debating with you. Even if you answer, like they come and they say, oh, how could all the animals fit on Noah's Ark? And you have a logical, reasonable answer for that, because you've studied it out and you know the scriptures are true. Even if you answer that, you're not persuading them. They're going to come back with another argument. You know, oh, where did Cain and Abel get their wives? And then you answer that one, and then they're going to have another point. It's just exhausting. You're not. A foolish person has no interest in learning. They're just trying to discover their own cause. I think the scripture says. Basically, they're just trying to prove themselves. They're trying to win an argument. They're trying to intellectually or argumentatively comfort themselves in their ideology by backing you into a corner eventually and causing you to stumble. So like there's no point in contending with them. There's no point. That's why Jesus would always say, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Jesus wouldn't debate. Jesus wouldn't argue. He just spoke the truth. And if you have ears to hear it, receive it. If you don't have ears to hear it, there's nothing I can do for you. God has to open your ears to receive truth. I think it was Charles Spurgeon, speaking about the gospel, said that we don't defend a lion, you just uncage it. And that's the scriptures. You don't have to defend the scriptures, you just uncage them. Just speak them. Speak the truth. And those who have ears to hear will hear. Those who don't have ears to hear, there's no amount of contention or debate or argument that's going to win them over. Verse 10, the bloodthirsty hate the upright, but the just seek his soul. The bloodthirsty, so those that are craving violence, those that are craving injury or demise towards a person, hate the upright. They hate righteousness. And Jesus said that in the New Testament, darkness hates the light. It's because we expose their wicked deeds. So you're always going to have that in your life. If you're living for the truth, there's going to be people that hate you secretly or openly. There's going to be people who have no reason or no cause, but they want to see you fail. They want to see you stumble. And that's why, like one of the things, as we mature in this faith, we want to strive to live without hypocrisy, because you don't want to give them weapons. You don't want them to be able to bring an accusation against you and say, see, you're just a hypocrite. You're doing this, this, and this. And yeah, we're sinners. but we don't want to give them that kind of ammo. So we want to seek to live above reproach, just so these bloodthirsty people, even if they're going to hate us, let them hate us without cause. So anyways, that was verse 10. Lord willing, we'll pick up in verse 11 next time. All right, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey, everybody. Continuing on in Proverbs Chapter 29. We read through verse 10 last time, so we'll pick up here in verse 11. It says, "A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in till afterwards." So again, another common theme. We see a lot of these repetitive themes throughout the Proverbs. I've heard it said that, if the Lord says something twice, I forget exactly how the saying goes, but essentially, if something in the scriptures is said twice, everything in scripture is authoritative and binding on the soul. We're obligated to keep the commandments. But if an issue is mentioned twice, it's of even more importance. I think that I heard that tied in with like when Jesus would say like, "Verily, verily." The Hebrews, when they would speak like that, it would just show emphasis. It would just add importance. And it's just common sense too. If something is said 2 or 3 or 4 times even, like, it is very, very important to pay attention to it. And this is something that's you mentioned all throughout the Proverbs, about, and in scriptures in general, about being careful with your tongue, about being wise with how you speak. I think, prudence has a lot to do with that. Prudence is like, not just wisdom of what to say, but when to say it, like how, when to temper the tongue, when to keep silent. And a fool uttereth all of his mind. A fool just wants to speak its piece, to express its heart, whatever's going on in the heart. A wise person will sit back, contemplate the situation, consider the things that are being said, weigh out all the options, and then formulate an opinion or a thought on it. Like, to the point where I've often thought, like, I kind of want to start carrying around a little notepad and a pen, because if I'm in a conversation with somebody, a lot of times people will talk and talk and talk, and like, they'll make a key point, and I pick up on that, and I'm thinking about that, and then maybe you miss some other things. And I always thought it would just be wise to be able to, like, if I'm, I want to show that I'm really paying attention to what you're saying, I might want to jot down things so that I'm not missing anything, especially like in theological or doctrine debates or whatever. You don't want to just, we have a tendency to lock in on a point and then miss what's being said. Or a lot of times you're listening to a person speak and you're not really listening. You're thinking about your own thoughts. You're thinking about the next thing you're going to say. And that's counterintuitive. It goes against what the scriptures teach us, because we're supposed to be slow to speak, quick to listen. And so it is here too. To wisdom picks up on all the details, listens carefully, and then formulates a thought or an opinion. Doesn't prejudge the situation and just want to speak its piece without paying attention to anything else that's being said. So this is something that's developed, I think, in maturity. As you are sanctified in the Lord, as you grow, you learn to temper your speech. You learn to carefully observe what other people are saying, think things through. And another thing is find a wise way to say certain things. Like, you can speak a truth to somebody in the wrong way, and it's not received. So wisdom tries to find an approachable way to broach the subject, to broach the topic, to bring a piece of information to somebody, especially like in chastisement or rebuke. You really want to be wise about how you do that. Not cowardly. A coward won't say anything at all for fear of offending. There's a distinction there. Wisdom says, how can I say this in a way that it'll be received? Verse 12, if a ruler hearken to lies, all his servants are wicked. All his servants are wicked. Again, all these verses on rulers naturally just make me think about the American political system, and our rulers are corrupt. We live in a very corrupt society, a very wicked society. So if a ruler hearkens to lies, listens to lies, all his servants are wicked, surrounded by wicked men. I remember, like, when Trump was elected, my prayer for him was that he would be surrounded by wise, biblically sound men that would guide him into truth. But wicked rulers surround themselves with wicked people. Verse 13, the poor and the deceitful man meet together. The Lord lighteneth both their eyes. The initial thought there is about death when it says meet together, the poor and the deceitful. Like, it makes me think of just the idea that rich and poor, powerful and weak, free and bond, everybody's gonna come together at the judgment seat. But then that second half makes me think maybe this is talking about something else, because this is the Lord lighteneth both their eyes. Lighteneth, to enlighten, to give wisdom to the eyes. I would assume that means like vision or thought or foresight. The Lord gives knowledge. The Lord gives wisdom. People can't understand anything, but especially in the realm of spiritual matters, you can't have spiritual enlightenment. You can't have spiritual vision unless the Lord allows it, unless the Lord gives it. The Lord has to give wisdom, give understanding. And he does that indiscriminately. So maybe that's what it's talking about, the poor and deceitful, regardless of who we were prior to conversion. I don't think that's what that's talking about. That is a truth, that God has no favorites. We're all the same. We all need his enlightenment. We all come to a point, in our enlightenment where the Lord, it doesn't matter who you are, what station you have in life. If he chooses to enlighten your eyes, you'll be enlightened. But I don't know what that's talking. The poor and deceitful man meet together. The Lord lighteneth both their eyes. I may have confused myself there. I'm not sure what that's talking about. Meet together. Yeah. 14. The king that faithfully judgeth the poor, his throne shall be established forever. So that's something we desire. That's a good ruler that faithfully judges, faithfully executes righteousness, does what is right, judgment, what is fair and balanced. A king that does that for the poor, that's meaning he doesn't show favoritism towards the rich. He's not bribed or coerced through money, which again, our system is corrupt like that. When you have a government that allows lobbyists, like, immediately that's just messed up. And then you have so many politicians that are in it for the money. They get stocks and they become members of or chairs of a board of a large company or whatever. How can we trust them to give fair judgment, to fair rulership, when they have monetary motivation to act in certain ways, to show favoritism towards certain people? So again, I don't think I've ever in my life, and as I read throughout history, at least dating back to like the Revolutionary War days, we have not had a system that has been fair. It's been corrupted. We've had corrupt politicians. Every once in a while, you get a good statesman who is not influenced by money, is not influenced by greed. But that is so rare and so far between. Like, I can only think of one in my lifetime that I've seen. Verse 15, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame. Again, another common theme here, the corrective rod corrective discipline drives foolishness from a child's heart. It gives wisdom that teaches a child that foolishness and rebellion will not be tolerated, that there's consequences for that behavior, and it teaches them the wisdom to get in line, to do what is right, to avoid the consequences of wrong. But a child left to himself, a child without corrective discipline, a child without that influence, brings shame to his mother because he's going to be rebellious. This is what I was as a child. Unfortunately, society has bred a lot of this because a lot of us come from split homes now where we only have one parent in the house and they have to work. So the consequence of that is that we are left alone, or left with like babysitters who have no real interest in corrective discipline or training up a child. They're just there to get paid. So a lot of children are left to themselves, which is why we see rebellious children who then grow up to be morally corrupt, rebellious adults. There's that rod has not driven that out of them. They've not been taught wisdom. They've not been corrected. They've been left to go down that path of rebellious corruption. So that was verse 15. We'll stop there. Lord willing, we'll pick up in 16 next time. All right, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey everybody. We're continuing on in Proverbs Chapter 29. We read through verse 15, so we're going to pick up here in verse 16. It reads, "When the wicked are multiplied, transgression increaseth, but the righteous shall see their fall." That gives hope. That again is another common theme throughout the scriptures. There's that one psalm, I forget which one it is, maybe like 73 or something, where the psalmist talks about how discouraged he is by seeing the prosperity of the wicked, how the righteous are struggling and suffering, but he looks around at the world and he sees the wicked with riches and seemingly no issues, no problems. But then he goes to the house of the Lord, he goes to worship, and he remembers that God is just, and that although the wicked have their portion of joy in this world, sometimes their feet are set in slippery places. Ultimately, God will do justice, and the wicked will be punished. So here it says, the righteous shall see their fall. On Judgment Day, the righteous will hear, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant, enter into thy rest." And the wicked will hear, "Depart from me, ye workers of iniquity," and they'll be cast into the lake of fire. So even if we suffer and struggle for like our entire lives, 70, 80 years, that's nothing when you compare it to eternity. It's a blink of an eye. So if the wicked have no, like imagine a wicked person having no problems ever and having riches and wealth and fame and power for their entire lives, in the end that life is over in the blink of an eye, and then they're facing judgment. So it's such a poor trade-off. Verse 17, "Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul." Parental discipline is such a vital part of Christianity and upbringing of children. It's a part that's missed in the lost culture. Like the way the lost world works, punishment is like a timeout or something, if that, and like spanking is frowned upon. And you look at the fruit of that and how children act and how they misbehave. Correction is a beautiful thing. Like proper biblical discipline of children is such a great, joyous thing to see, because our hearts are wicked from birth. Like we go astray from birth. We desire wickedness. We desire rebellion. That's in our hearts. And corrective, loving discipline drives that from the heart. The rod drives that out. So when you correct your son, he will give thee rest. It's like a peaceful, joyous thing. He'll give delight unto thy soul. When I have a brother and sister that I fellowship with on a regular basis, and they've got a lot of children. And when I see the way they conduct biblical discipline, how like it's just a righteous, good thing to see the way they go about it. It's not done in anger. It's not done hastily. It's done with corrective measures as the motive, and it's done in love. And there's guidance after the discipline. There's instruction after the discipline. And I always tell them, like, it's beautiful to watch. Like, it's one of the greatest things I see in that family. Verse 18. Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he. It's a verse I think about a lot. Where there's no vision, the people perish. Like, you have to have an idea of an end goal. Like especially in ministry, like, you have to have a purpose. You have to have a plan for it to work out. Without a vision, the people perish. And I don't know if that means like death or just like a negative thing. Like, it's unwise to go about things without a plan, without some sort of structure and organization. Isn't one of the gifts of the New Testament church like administration? And I'm not sure if that means organization or structure or what, but that's how I view it. And like, it's such a beautiful thing. Like a church, a body, a ministry will prosper when somebody has a vision. They have an idea of where they want to go with it. They have an idea of what they want to accomplish, and they lay it out with a plan, with a structure. That's a good thing. Verse 19, a servant will not be corrected by words, for though he understand, he will not answer. I suppose that's just a form of prideful rebellion. Like, and we see that in ourselves and in others. Like, when somebody brings correction and you don't want to receive it, even if you know it's right, there's that stubbornness inside of us that wants to reject it and not have anything to do with it. So, verse 20, seest thou a man that is hasty in his words? There is more hope of a fool than of him. That's pretty severe. So that's another common theme throughout the scriptures, to temper our tongues, to be slow to speak, to think through your words, to just speak off the cuff, to just, it's emotional based when people are just, speaking whatever's on their mind without thinking things through. It says here, there's more hope for a fool than of him. That kind of person isn't really going to stop and hear or receive or dialogue. They're only interested in expressing their own heart of stating their own goals, stating their own purposes. So it's just a foolish thing. That was verse 20, so we'll stop there, and then Lord willing, we'll pick up in verse 21 next time. All right, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey, everybody. We're still in Proverbs Chapter 29. We read through verse 20, so we'll pick up here in verse 21. It says, he that delicately bringeth up his servant from a child shall have him become his son at the length. A bit of common sense there, just you treat your servant well, your employee well. In this case, it was like lifelong employees, but to treat them well from a child, to just be a decent person to them, and they'll love and respect and honor you, like a son. An angry man stirreth up strife, and a furious man aboundeth in transgression. There's another verse that talks about avoiding angry men. That would be why an angry person is stirring up strife, constantly looking for fights, constantly looking for arguments, not really having any interest in peace, just always stirring the pot, so to speak. You want to stay away from that, of course. Verse 23, a man's pride shall bring him low, but honor shall uphold the humble in spirit. So again, that's another very common theme throughout the scriptures. It says in another place that the Lord hates a proud look. Pride is the sin that got Satan cast out of heaven. So you could say pride is the original sin. And it seems to be a foundational sin in the hearts of people. We're a proud people. We find stupid things to be proud of. Anything that we can find that differentiates us from others, or that we suppose we are better. Like, you can be like proud that you have a better pen than somebody, like pride will well up in you. It's just a foolish foundational sin in the hearts of men. And pride goes before destruction. Pride goes before the fall. Like the Lord hates pride, because it's this it's a lie. It's this self-reliant, self-glorifying thing, when the scriptures clearly teach that you have nothing good that did not come from above. If there is any good quality in you, if you have advanced knowledge or advanced ability in anything, it's because God gave it to you. It's not because you somehow attain something more than somebody else. It's nothing in you. It is a gift that God has given to you, meant to glorify Him. And so if you take that gift and you glorify yourself in it, thinking that somehow you're better or superior, it's the antithesis of what it's supposed to be. That gift is supposed to be used for God's glory. And the Lord will humble you. The Lord will not share His glory with anybody. And so a person who is proud will be brought low. The Lord will reveal their pride, reveal their foolishness, usually like in shame or embarrassment or whatever, just to bring you low and show that you really are nothing. But on the other hand, honor upholds the humble in spirit. Those that are humble, the Lord honors that. The Lord will glorify that in it. People will like, there's a verse that talks about let your praise come from the lips of another, not yourself. Like true humility that sees itself lowly and sees that I have nothing that was not given to me. I'm no better than anybody else. And even to the point where you see yourself as less than others, like, the Lord will glorify that. And it's a constant battle. Like I say, we find pride in everything. People find pride in their intellect, in their emotional stability, in their compassion, in their benevolence, in their giving, in their looks, in their speed, in their charisma, in their possessions, in their ability to talk, to speak well. Just everything has a tendency to build up pride in ourselves. It's a very dangerous and like I say, a foundational thing in the heart of man that we have to constantly be aware of and constantly battle against, and remind ourselves that I have nothing that was not given to me. And I am not better. Like, self-examination is a great thing. An awareness of your own sinfulness, an awareness of that, keeps you humble. It helps you to realize that how could I ever think I'm better than anybody else, knowing my own heart. But again, and then we'll find something. Well, I got better looking eyes, or I'm taller, or whatever. There's so many things that people find pride in. So you have to constantly remind yourself to be humble, because the Lord hates pride, but He elevates the humble. Verse 24: Whoso is partner with a thief hateth his own soul. He heareth cursing, and bewrayeth it not. Partner with a thief. So I think that's just a friendship with evil. It's a damage to your own soul. You can't be around wicked behavior without it affecting you. So you're really just doing damage to yourself. He that heareth cursing. Now, I don't know if that's referring to like what we consider cursing, like we call swearing cursing. I don't know if back then cursing was like actually like asking for something bad to happen to somebody, like proclaiming a curse upon them. But I know as a Christian, one of the first things I noticed in myself when I got saved was that my language was cleared up. Like, as a lost person, I used to cuss all the time. Every other word was a cuss word. As soon as I got saved, I was very grieved by cuss words. Like, and I suppose it's because cussing reveals anger, reveals like hatred in the heart, and when the Lord comes into your heart, He changes so that you're no longer an angry, hateful person. You become a loving, compassionate person, and so your language reflects that. Like it's a natural thing, and I think it's like one of the first things, at least in me and the brothers that I know, it's one of the first things that you recognize in a person when they're born again, is they no longer speak the way they used to speak. And in fact, it grieves you to hear cursing. Like, I noticed that as well. So not only did my language clear up, but I hated to hear filthy language. Like, it was not an offense. It was grievous. It was almost painful, to especially like people using the Lord's name in vain. It would make you cringe. It would like spiritually hurt to hear that kind of language. Verse 25, the fear of man bringeth a snare, but whoso putteth his trust in the Lord shall be safe. This is a verse that I often think about, often discuss with my brothers. Like, if you're afraid of men, especially like what they'll think of you, like that's a trap. It ensnares you. It prevents you from doing right, from being who you're supposed to be. If you're constantly wondering what others think about you or how they view you, it's a snare. But to put your trust in the Lord shall be safe. Just to trust God, just to do righteously, to not consider what others think or what other people are going to say, but to live a righteous life. One brother I know would he would put it, I forget exactly how he would say it, but we should just be who we are. And what he means by that is, like, internally as Christians, we love righteousness. We rejoice in truth. We love wholesomeness and goodness. But often that fear of man, that peer pressure, causes us to act in ways that go against who we are in our internal being, who we are in our inner man. We put on a show, or we tolerate what the lost world has going on for it, or it just changes who we are. But if we were really who we're supposed to be, like, a born again Christian truly desires to talk about Jesus all the time. Like, you want to speak of his glories. Like, he's always on your mind, always on your heart, always on the tip of your tongue. But because we fear what others think, we fear the frown or the disinterest, or we feel like we just bashed people over the head with it. We temper ourselves. But if we're just who we're supposed to be, if we just live what we are internally and not worry about what others think, we're going to constantly be shining forth that inner glory, that Christ likeness that is in us, that we want to express all the time. If we did that, and not worry about what others think, the light of Christ would shine forth. Verse 26, many seek the ruler's favor, but every man's judgment cometh from the Lord. That's a really good truth there. We have a tendency to flatter or to seek a ruler's favor. Like, we want to put on a good show for those in power. Like, you think about like your job or something like that. You want to make sure the boss sees you doing well. You want to make sure that the boss is aware of all your good qualities. And so we'll go about in various different ways of making sure they're aware of that. But every man's judgment cometh from the Lord. Like, we don't have to do that. We don't have to seek the favor of others. If we're just, again, being who we're supposed to be, living our Christian life, the Lord is going to bless that, and judgment comes from the Lord. Whether or not your boss gives you a raise really has nothing to do with your boss. That's the Lord's work. the Lord will cause people to show you favor or disfavor, depending on whatever the Lord's will for you. So if you just trust the Lord and live your life and not worry about flattering or putting on a good show for others, you just trust God to do what God's going to do. And then verse 27 here, an unjust man is an abomination to the just, and he that is upright in the way is abomination to the wicked. That's also a really good verse, because I think about, like, if you ever watch the news, like I can't watch the news because I end up getting furious, because you see unrighteous, unjust behavior, especially from politicians and media and celebrities, and it is an abomination to the righteous to see that. It's like you want the justice of the Lord to pour down upon him. You want righteous vengeance to come. It's abominable. You hate the lies that are pouring forth. You hate the wickedness that is promoted. You hate the celebration of perversion that is put forth. It's an abomination. But the insight here is that it says that the upright in the way is abomination to the wicked. So the same way that we despise and hate wickedness, the wicked look at us and hate us. They hate our righteousness. They hate that light that we proclaim. They hate, like you'll often hear Christians referred to as bigots or judgmental. And it's because the lost world, darkness hates the light. Light hates the darkness, darkness hates the light. The difference is we don't wish ill upon them. Like we want people to be saved. We hate the actions of the wicked. But we have compassion and pity, or we ought to, on those that are doing those things. And we pray for those who persecute us and love our enemies and want to see them saved. Whereas the wicked just hates us. Not only what we represent, but they hate us. So that's an interesting thought there. But that wraps up chapter 29. So Lord willing, we will pick up in chapter 30 next time. All right. I love you guys. We'll talk to you later.